Hari Om Tat Sat.
Hari Om Tat Sat.
So, I'm going to talk about chakras. And if you think about it, where do chakras come from? What are they made of? Are they real? Do they exist like flowers in the garden? Are they psychic? Are they pranic? Are they astral? Are they figments of the imagination? These are the things that we have to inquire about, because maybe 10 or 20,000 years ago, people must have asked the same questions. They would have asked many things. In those days, they were much more wealthy than we are now. You know, we're flat out getting half an hour to do a bit of meditation in the morning. But they managed to do it for weeks and months together, and then compose beautiful poetry, shlokas, about their experiences. And they wrote about Kundalini Yoga. And it came out in the Tantras, and they were called Tantras. It came out in the Puranas. It came out in Vedas. Kundalini Yoga is part of every part of the ancient literature. And just think that from that ancient time when nothing was written, everything was remembered. We have today, from those days, we have today about 1,000 Tantras, plus numerous Puranas and stories from the Vedas, all on Kundalini Yoga. And out of that, we have two significant books. One is by Shyam Sundar Goswami, Shyam Sundar Goswami, called Laya Yoga, which is a study of the literature which he translated from Sanskrit. It's a pretty tiring read because he's so minute in his descriptions and detailed. There's no lyric to it, there's no story to it. And the other is a direct report of the experiences of Swami Satyananda, and he gives that in his Tantra called Kundalini Tantra. And apart from that, we have the Chakra Nirupanam, which was just 700 or 800 years old, from Swami Purnanand. And that was his description, a beautiful description, fortunately translated by Arthur Avalon or Sir John Woodroffe. And he has contributed a lot to our knowledge of Kundalini Yoga. You know about Sir John Woodroffe's story, don't you? Yes? No? Sir John Woodroffe was the High Court judge in Calcutta about 1890. And he was noticing while he was judging in a civil case that sometimes his mind would go towards one litigant, and at other times it would go to the other litigant. And he noticed that his judgments were being biased. And his secretary said to him, "Sir, you're going off track. He said, it's strange. I've been watching the mind, and it's been going from left to right and from right to left. It's been going in favor of this party or in favor of that party. What is going on? Am I becoming unqualified to be a judge? He said, no, sir. Both sides are employing tantric priests who are using mantras to influence your mind. And sometimes one party would start up with their mantras and pull his mind that way, and others would pull his mind the other way. He said, that's fantastic. He quit his job as High Court judge. It was a very good position in those days. He quit his job. He was a knighted man, Sir John Woodroffe. I mean, he wasn't just an ordinary judge. And he went to Assam with a group of pundits, and he translated many, many Sanskrit texts. Fortunately, he did Sat Chakra Nirupanam, and he called the book Serpent Power. And from that one book, we have so much information. And together with his commentary, he must have been a very, very intelligent man. And he also wrote many other books and contributed quite a lot to our knowledge of Kundalini Yoga. Otherwise, nobody would have known anything about Kundalini Yoga. It would have been hidden as some remote idea within the Sanskrit texts, but now they are all coming out. But it started from serpent power. And if you think about it, in ancient times, people had the time to sit down for weeks and months and relate their experiences in poetic form so that all the disciples or listeners, aspirants, would gather around and would listen to these talks and remember. It tells you that the mental capacity of people in those times was different to what we are now. You know, in Kundalini Yoga, it is said that the flowers, Shiva said to Parvati asked Shiva, the flowers of Kundalini, everyone knows about this Muladhara flower, four petal, Swadhisthana, 6 petal. We all know, don't we? Yeah? Anyhow, within the body we have these flowers. I'll go into them in a moment. And the question arose, why do the flowers of some people hang down, and why do the flowers of other people look up? And Shiva said to Parvati, when the flowers hang down, the people are forward-thinking. They are people of action. They are people of acquisitions. They are people hard at work to pay the rent, to build the house, to make everything established. And those people who can stop, who can renounce, who can sit quietly without a care in the world, their flowers look up. And Swami Shivananji has written in his Kundalini Yoga that wherever Shakti resides, whether she is down in Muladhara, or whether she is up in Sahasrara, or anywhere in between, then the flowers will look towards where Kundalini Shakti resides. So if she is in Anahat, then the flowers below Anahat, the chakra flowers, will look up and the flowers above Anahat will look down. Do we understand that little point? Good. So, I have so many ideas here. It's called, the practice is called Kundalini Tantra. What does Tantra mean? You know that instrument, the tanpura, that when the four wires are pulled, that's the tan. And the pur is full, complete. So when you pull the wire hard, that means you stretch the wire and it makes a beautiful note. That's the tan of Tantra. And the tra means to liberate, trayoti. We pull the consciousness to reveal more knowledge, more things. We have an expanded consciousness. The consciousness is tanned. And then, if I can translate tan into English, it becomes tanned. And then the trayoti. Nobody understands my jokes. Trayoti means to liberate. It is a very difficult thing to accept this liberation, because when knowledge is liberated, then who is king? Who is in charge? Who is going to regulate? Who is going to control? Look what happens in Egypt and Libya and Iraq. When you take the king away, you say you've got this despot at the top. Okay, take him away, get rid of him. But they forgot the important bit. Who is going to be in charge? If there's no in charge, then what do you get? A violent mess. And it's the same with this liberation. You see, it is not so simple to just go up the chakras and liberate the consciousness and liberate so that we are free to do anything. If you liberate any person who is immature, you will get a lot of violence, a bit like King's Cross at 2 o'clock in the morning. People drink so that they feel free. And they go up to King's Cross and they do the one-punch thing because it feels good. And they knock someone out. That's not liberation. And then you have this free speech. You can just say anything, abuse anyone, say what you like. We need some regulation. We can't go around like violent idiots all the time. That is not the liberation of Tantra. We have to liberate and be conscious and be compassionate and be kind and be truthful and be regular, and all the principles of yoga have to be there. Then we are capable of progressing in Kundalini. What's that say? 9:20. Okay.
Don't worry.
Eyes are fading a bit. I can't read that properly. The next point was going to be in the concept of Kundalini Yoga, we are stuck in the materialistic plane. And the materialistic plane means that we don't see divinity in anything. Last night, or yesterday afternoon, we saw Shiva in both forms. We saw Shiva with attributes, and then he lost them in gambling to Shakti. Remember? He lost all his attributes. And what did he do? Attributeless Shiva retreated to the forest and became useless to everyone. He was no use, he was just consciousness. Just consciousness, powerless, couldn't do anything. That's why an invisible, attributeless God can't do anything. He can know everything. Probably he says, shouldn't happen, but can't do anything about it. He hasn't got any attributes. No power, no Shakti. And where is Shakti? She is down the bottom, right down the bottom, in that red light area between the urinary and excretory organs. Locked up in a secure garage called Muladhara. She is locked up there. And why is she locked up? Because we cannot see the divinity in food. We just see yum and eat it. And so the ancient people said, no, everything has a divine source. It all has a divine source. We just have to be able to awaken our consciousness to that. So in the beginning we start with Muladhara. Maybe you've awakened it in the past, or maybe you haven't. But you begin Kundalini Yoga with Muladhara. I know in the books it talks about first working on Agya, etc. I've studied the books too. And we have to be able to awaken Agya so that we can see what is happening in Muladhara. So we start the work with Agya and then move to Muladhara for our basic work. And Muladhara is the chakra of earth, materialistic plane. It is the chakra of earthly consciousness. But there's a deity in there. There's not one deity, there's 2, 3, 4 deities inside Muladhara. Muladhara, the base chakra of Devi, Kundalini Shakti, she resides in there, locked up by our own materialistic consciousness. In order to release consciousness from Muladhara, we have to bring in a little divine light. And that is the beginning of the awakening of Muladhara. I am sure that everyone here has begun to awaken Muladhara. There she is, sitting in there, but she is so concealed. Muladhara, the first thing we come to see inside Muladhara are the 4 petals of a lotus flower. The 4 petals are positioned like the first petal is about 1:30 in the clock. The next petal is at probably 4 o'clock. Next petal is what? 7 or 8 o'clock. and the fourth petal about 10 or 11 o'clock. Have you got the idea? 4 petals. And on the first petal, at about 1 or 1:30, is the letter Sam. The next petal is Sham. The next petal is Sham. And the last petal is Sham. In Sanskrit, they have 4 S's. Sa, Sha, Sha, Sha. And if you say Krishna, they'll say, what do you mean Krishna? Nobody understands Krishna. They only understand Krishna. It's a different S. The 4 S's are there. This is part of the Devanagari alphabet, the alphabet of the gods. It's there. How did that happen? That's something that came from the divine. Now, these 4 petals are the beginning. And the interesting thing is that those letters, those petals, we're just illustrating Muladhara at the moment, but we have those petals and those letters on all the chakras, and it adds up to 50. And how many letters are there in the Devanagari alphabet? 50. And where does the Sanskrit language stem from? Here, on the petals. It's still there? Yeah. And what are these chakras? What is this Muladhara, this fantastic shape and these colours? Where do they come from? I've been dying to know, and I discovered on the internet there was an old painting, and on the top it said in Devanagari, prana. And that painting, you can see it all through the internet, it is a painting of thousands of nadis. Thousands and thousands of nadis. I didn't count them actually on the painting, and the internet resolution's a bit weak. But it just looks like thousands. There are supposed to be 72,000 nadis. And these nadis, they're astral. They're very subtle. And flowing in these nadis is prana. And this prana is energy. And when the prana flows in and flows out, they are like light streams. And sometimes the prana is white, sometimes the prana is red, sometimes the prana is blue, different colours according to which prana is flowing. If the prana is flowing in the chest, or if the prana is flowing, I don't want to go into these areas of yoga, is flowing in the digestive system, or if it's flowing all over, etc. Whether it's prana, vyana, samana, udana, whether it is one of those pranas, it doesn't matter. But the colour comes. And out of those thousands and thousands of pranas, there are bunches of pranas collecting at different points down the spinal column. The biggest bunch is behind the navel, and then around the heart, And below the navel, what we call Swadhisthana. And below that, Muladhara. And above in Vishuddhi. And above in Agya. And then Sahasra. These are formed, these chakras that we can see are formed by flowing prana. And the prana begins, the first prana begins, the first nadi emerges from Anahat. And the first letter of the alphabet vibrates with the vibration of the petal from the first petal Ka, which is the first letter of the Devanagari alphabet. I don't know who organized it so nicely. That the next letter on the second letter on the alphabet and the second letter on the second petal is Ka, etc. So we get the first 12 letters of the alphabet coming out from the heart. The next 12 letters coming out from the navel, etc., going down. And then they go up, and finally up here, Ham Ksham. So you get the 50 letters of the alphabet coming out from those pranas. And then, in order to awaken Kundalini Shakti, we have to be able to awaken those pranas. After all, what is prana? It is nothing more than an aspect of Kundalini Shakti herself. She has created it. Kundalini Shakti has come from sound. Last point. She has come from sound. Creation, the Big Bang, if you like, came from sound. But that sound was unknowable. Have you ever heard the sound of the Big Bang? I've been listening every TV program, sounds of creation and all that. They're trying. They're getting very close. They're getting to be one microsecond after the Big Bang. But I've never actually heard the sound of the Big Bang. They have these radio receptors and all that. And they're still trying, and they're spending billions trying to hear it. But nobody's heard the sound of the Big Bang. That is because it is unhearable. It is called para. And out of that para, and where is para contained in our human consciousness? Not up here. It's contained down there in Muladhara. Because creation, as far as we're concerned, our creation begins from Muladhara. Muladhara contains everything. From Muladhara isn't just a base chakra with the two understandings of the word base. It is the container of the whole universe as we will ever know it. Within Muladhara is contained Ganesha. And Ganesha is the deity of transformation. You know how Ganesha... Oh, I haven't got time to tell you about Ganesha.
On. Nityabodh, please.
Ganesha was created out of earth. Parvati needed someone to help her out. She was living up there in Kailash. Swami Niranjanji, he writes so nicely about Ganesh, worship of Ganesh, Ganesha Radhana. Have any of you got that book? Huh? Yeah. And you should read it. It came out at the World Yoga Convention. So, the Ganesha Radhana Ganesh was created out of a lump of earth. Parvati was the goddess. She could create her babies out of a lump of earth. She didn't need any Shiva. And she created a beautiful Ganesh, and he stood there to guard for her, and Shiva came and knocked his head off. And his name in those days was Vinayak. So Parvati came and said, "Look what you've done." And he said, "I'll put the head of something else on." He put the head of an elephant onto Vinayak and renamed him Ganesh. Why? What is the symbology of all this fantastic stuff? The symbology is that Vinayak was born of a lump of earth at the hands of Shakti. There is no Shiva in that. She's a one-sided creation. He was a one-sided creation. And he couldn't have any consciousness. So he took the head away and gave him, Vinayak, the head of an animal which would remember, which would have great mental capacity, and who wouldn't be too interested in going very great distances. So he only had a mouse as a vehicle. He wasn't a go here, go there, go everywhere sort of person. He was there for his mental capacities, for his consciousness. And so this is the indication of the transformation from earthly plane, the beginning of the awakening of Muladhara from earthly matter into consciousness, the head of the elephant. And that elephant had 7 trunks, and it's full of symbology and meaning. But I'm afraid we haven't got time to go any further.